levels that stray so far away from the sport. And I feel like it is our responsibility now to recenter it. And I know I've not been perfect in this. Oftentimes, in full transparency, I did not want to talk about this today because I personally believe our shows have a choice on whether, deciding what we give airtime to and what we don't.
Caitlin Clark is being gaslit right now on national television. And the person doing it just went on ESPN First Take and had the nerve to act like she had nothing to do with any of it. Hello everyone, welcome back to WNBA X Tare True. I am back with another exciting and informative video that I truly hope you are going to enjoy. Make sure you stay with me all the way to the very end because you will not want to miss what is coming in this one. There is so much to break down, so much to unpack, and honestly, so much that the mainstream media does not want you to see clearly. So without wasting any more of your time, let's jump straight into it. Okay, so here is what happened. Chiney Ogwumike, ESPN analyst, former WNBA player, someone who has had a front row seat to every single controversy surrounding Caitlin Clark over the past year and a half, went on First Take. She sat down on one of the biggest sports platforms in the entire world. And instead of owning what she and her colleagues have done, instead of taking real accountability, she looked into that camera and she tried to rewrite history. She tried to tell you, the viewer, the fan, the person who has been watching all of this unfold in real time, that the conversation around the WNBA has somehow drifted too far away from basketball, like it just happened on its own, like nobody pushed it there, like she had nothing to do with it. And folks, I am sorry, but we have to call that exactly what it is. That is gaslighting. Pure, textbook, 100% gaslighting. And we are not going to let it slide. Not on this channel. Not today. Let me set the scene for you, because context is everything here. Caitlin Clark came into the WNBA and she did something that nobody, and I mean nobody, had ever done before at this level. She brought millions of new eyes to this league. She sold out arenas. She broke viewership records that had been standing for decades. She did things on a basketball court that made casual fans stop scrolling and actually pay attention. She is, without any question, the single most transformative figure this league has ever seen. And what did certain ESPN personalities do in response to that? They minimized her. They downplayed her. They ran with narratives that had nothing to do with basketball and everything to do with tearing down the one player who was single-handedly saving their ratings. And now, after all of that, after Ryan Clark got fired, after the backlash reached a fever pitch, after the audience made it crystal clear that they were sick and tired of the anti-Clark agenda, now Chiney Ogwumike wants to get on First Take and talk about resetting the conversation. Now she wants to talk about responsibility. Now she wants to act like she is part of the solution. We were not born yesterday. Let me tell you something. The internet has a memory. The fans have a memory. And we remember every single moment. We remember when Chiney and her colleagues treated a fist to Caitlin Clark's throat like it was no big deal. We remember when they ran with allegations against Clark that turned out to be nothing. We remember when they consistently, deliberately, and repeatedly chose to frame Caitlin Clark as a problem rather than a phenomenon. And now we are supposed to just forget all of that because Chiney showed up on First Take with a reset speech? No, absolutely not. But here is the thing that makes this even more remarkable. Even as Chiney was sitting there talking about resetting the conversation, talking about responsibility, talking about giving airtime to the beautiful basketball, she admitted right there on camera that she did not even want to be there. She admitted that she had not been perfect. She admitted that shows have a choice about what they give airtime to. And yet there she was, choosing, making a choice, and still getting it wrong. Listen to this. This is her own words.
This conversation about the WNBA and one of its shining stars, the shooting star that only happens once in a while, Caitlin Clark, who is a phenomenal player, she just wants to play basketball.
Did you hear that? She said, in full transparency, that she did not want to talk about this today. She said she personally believes shows have a choice about what they give airtime to, and then she went on First Take anyway and talked about it anyway, and tried to frame herself as the responsible voice in the room anyway. That is not accountability. That is a performance. That is someone who saw the writing on the wall after Ryan Clark got fired and decided it was time to get out in front of it before the same thing happened to her. And look, I want to be fair here, I genuinely do, because I understand that working at a place like ESPN is complicated. There are producers, there are executives, there are ratings pressures, there are a lot of forces pulling in a lot of different directions. I get that. But here is the thing, Chiney Ogwumike is not some rookie analyst who just showed up and did not know any better. She is a former WNBA player, she played in this league, she knows what it takes, she knows how hard these women work. And she, more than almost anyone else at that network, had a responsibility to get this right from the very beginning, and she did not. And now she wants credit for admitting it? Let's talk about the fist in the throat moment, because I think this is the single most important example of what we are dealing with here. When Caitlin Clark got hit, when we are talking about a fist making contact with her throat, Chiney's initial reaction was to downplay it, to say it was not a big deal. It was only after fans froze the frame, after the footage went viral, after millions of people saw with their own eyes what had happened, that the tone started to shift. And even then, the shift was grudging, it was reluctant. It was the minimum possible acknowledgement wrapped in the maximum possible hedging. That is the pattern. That has always been the pattern. Minimize first, walk it back only when forced, never fully own it. And then, when the heat gets too intense, go on first take and give a reset speech and hope everyone forgets. We do not forget. Now here is where this story gets even bigger, because it is not just about Chiney Ogwumike. It is about what her appearance on First Take reveals about the state of ESPN and the WNBA media landscape as a whole. Because think about this, why does Chiney get called up to First Take? What is the segment about? It is about Caitlin Clark. It is about controversy surrounding Caitlin Clark. Because that is the only thing that drives ratings. That is the only thing that gets people to tune in. And every single person in that building knows it. Here is the reality that nobody at ESPN wants to say out loud. Before Caitlin Clark, WNBA games were drawing 200,000, 300,000 viewers. Arenas were getting 4,000, 5,000 people in the seats. The league was surviving, but it was not thriving. It was not growing. It was not breaking through to mainstream America. And then Caitlin Clark arrived, and everything changed. Everything. The numbers exploded, the arenas sold out, the merchandise flew off the shelves, sponsors came flooding in, the entire financial trajectory of the league shifted in a way that nobody had seen in 30 years of WNBA history. And what did certain voices at ESPN do with that? They tried to undermine it, they tried to complicate it, they tried to make it about everything except the extraordinary player at the center of it all. Now listen to this clip, because this is the moment that really crystallizes everything.
Do you know what ESPN will hear when they get into that segment? People clicking off. People turning off their TV and putting on a different show.
A shooting star that only happens once in a while. Caitlin Clark, who is a phenomenal player, she just wants to play basketball. Those are Chiney's own words. And that is the most honest thing she has said in this entire saga, because that is exactly right. Caitlin Clark is a shooting star. She is a once-in-a-generation player, and she does just want to play basketball. She has said it over and over again. She does not want the drama. She does not want the controversy. She does not want to be in the middle of media wars and hot take segments and network politics. She wants to be on the court. She wants to compete. She wants to win. But here is the thing. Chiney and her colleagues at ESPN have been denying that exact reality for over a year. They have been treating Caitlin Clark like a problem to be managed, rather than a phenomenon to be celebrated. And now, suddenly, when the consequences start to arrive, when Ryan Clark is out the door and the audience is making its voice heard loud and clear, now Chiney wants to describe Clark as a shooting star. Where was that energy 18 months ago? Where was that energy when it mattered? Where was that energy when the narrative was being set, and the tone was being established, and the framing was being locked in? It was nowhere, because it did not serve the agenda at the time. And that is why this reset speech rings so hollow. That is why the fans are not buying it. That is why social media absolutely erupted when this First Take segment aired, because people have been paying attention, people have been watching, people have been documenting every single moment of this saga. And they know the difference between genuine accountability and a carefully timed PR move designed to protect a job. Let me tell you something else that is incredibly revealing about this whole situation. The fact that Chiney went on First Take at all, the fact that ESPN called her up for this segment, tells you everything you need to know about how that network operates. Because think about what the segment was. It was not about a great game. It was not about a historic performance. It was not about a milestone or a record or a championship. It was about controversy surrounding Caitlin Clark. Because that is what gets ratings. That is what gets clicks. That is what gets people to stop and watch. And the beautiful irony, the absolutely stunning irony, is that Chiney sat there and talked about how the conversation has gone too far from basketball while participating in a segment that was itself a perfect example of the conversation going too far from basketball. She was part of the very thing she was criticizing, in real time, on live television, and either she did not see it, or she did not care, or she thought nobody would notice. We noticed. Now let's talk about what this means for Caitlin Clark specifically, because at the end of the day, that is what this channel is about. That is what the fans care about. And here is the truth. Caitlin Clark does not need Chiney Ogwumike's validation. She does not need ESPN's approval. She does not need a reset speech or a moment of manufactured accountability from the people who spent a year and a half making her life harder than it needed to be. She is already winning. She has already won. The numbers tell the story. The sold-out arenas tell the story. The record-breaking television ratings tell the story. The sponsorship deals, the merchandise sales, the cultural impact, the way casual sports fans who never watched a single WNBA game before are now tuning in every single week. All of that tells the story. Caitlin Clark has already proven every single doubter wrong. She has already demonstrated, beyond any possible argument, that she is the most important player this league has ever had and possibly ever will have. And here is something else worth saying. The fact that ESPN keeps coming back to Caitlin Clark, even when they are pretending to talk about something else, is itself the greatest possible proof of her importance. You do not get segments about resetting the conversation unless the conversation was dominated by one person in the first place. You do not get apology tours unless the original behavior caused real damage. You do not get Chiney Ogwumike on First Take talking about shooting stars unless that shooting star has already lit up the entire sky. Caitlin Clark did that, without any help from the people who were supposed to be covering her fairly. She did it despite the narratives, despite the downplaying, despite the fist in the throat moments being waved away, despite every attempt to complicate and cloud and confuse the story of what she was doing on that basketball court. She just kept playing. She kept putting up numbers. She kept filling arenas. She kept breaking records. She kept being exactly what she has always been, the most exciting, most watchable, most marketable player in the history of this league. And now, one by one, the people who tried to stand in the way of that are being forced to reckon with what they did. Ryan Clark is already gone, and now Chiney Ogwumike is sitting on First Take giving reset speeches, and the fans are watching, and the fans are not forgetting. And the fans are making their voices heard in the only language that television networks truly understand: ratings, clicks, and the sound of people turning the channel. Now here is where it gets even more interesting, because the reaction to this First Take segment was not just one-sided. Social media absolutely exploded after this aired, and the responses were all over the place. On one side, you had the Caitlin Clark faithful, the fans who have been with her from day one, who watched every game at Iowa, who followed every step of her WNBA journey, and they were furious. They were not buying the reset speech for even 1 second. They were calling it out for exactly what it is. They were sharing the receipts, the old clips, the old takes, the old moments that show exactly what the coverage looked like before the accountability era began. But on the other side, you also had some people, and I want to be fair here, I really do, who said, look, at least she is admitting she was not perfect. At least she is saying the conversation needs to change. At least she is showing up and acknowledging that something went wrong. And I understand that perspective. I do. Accountability is rare in media. When someone admits they made mistakes, that is worth something. But here is the problem. The admission has to be real. It has to be complete. It has to come with a genuine understanding of what went wrong and why. And what we got on First Take was not that. What we got was a carefully hedged, strategically timed, professionally managed acknowledgement that stopped well short of actually naming the harm, naming the specific moments, naming the specific ways in which the coverage failed Caitlin Clark and failed the fans. It was accountability theatre, and the audience saw right through it. And that is the split you are seeing on social media right now. Not a split between Clark fans and Clark haters. Not a split between people who think she is great and people who think she is overrated. This is a split between people who are willing to accept the minimum and people who are demanding the real thing. And I think we all know which side of that split this channel is on. Because Caitlin Clark deserves better than the minimum. She has always deserved better than the minimum. And the fact that we are still, after everything, still having to fight for fair coverage, still having to point out the gaslighting, still having to call out the people who are supposed to be doing their jobs honestly, that tells you just how deep this problem goes at ESPN and across the broader sports media landscape. But here is what I want to leave you with. Here is the thing that gives me genuine hope when I look at this whole situation. The audience won, the fans won. Think about that for a second. Regular people watching games, watching clips, sharing moments on social media, refusing to accept bad coverage, demanding better, voting with their attention and their clicks and their subscriptions. They changed the conversation. They forced a reckoning at the biggest sports network in the world. They got results. Ryan Clark is gone. Chiney Ogwumike is on First Take, giving reset speeches. The tone is shifting. Slowly, grudgingly, reluctantly, but it is shifting. And that happened because of you, the fans. The people who love this game and love this player and refuse to let the narrative be controlled by people with an agenda. That is real power. That is what it looks like when an audience decides it is not going to be gaslit anymore. Caitlin Clark just keeps playing basketball. She keeps doing what she does. She keeps being extraordinary. And every single time someone tries to dim her light, the fans turn it up brighter. That is the story of this moment. That is the story of this era of the WNBA. And it is just getting started. Now let me show you one more clip because this one is important. This is the moment that really cuts to the heart of everything we have been talking about today.
Levels that stray so far away from the sport. And I feel like it is our responsibility now to recenter it. And I know I've not been perfect in this. Oftentimes, in full transparency, I did not want to talk about this today because I personally believe our shows have a choice on whether, deciding what we give airtime to and what we don't.
People clicking off, people turning off their TV and putting on a different show. That is what happens when ESPN tries to talk about the WNBA without talking about Caitlin Clark. That is the reality. That is the market speaking. And no reset speech, no accountability moment, no carefully crafted first take appearance is going to change that fundamental truth. The audience has decided. The market has decided. Caitlin Clark is the story. She has always been the story. And the sooner every analyst, every host, every network executive accepts that, the better off everyone is going to be. Because here is the bottom line. Pre-Caitlin Clark, this league was drawing 200,000 viewers on a good night. Arenas were half empty, sponsors were not calling. The 30-year anniversary of the WNBA was going to come and go without anyone outside of hardcore basketball fans even noticing. And then one player, one extraordinary, generational, once-in-a-lifetime player changed all of that. She did it by herself. She did it despite the headwinds. She did it while getting punched in the throat and having that moment waved away on national television. She did it while being minimized and complicated and framed as a problem by the very network that was supposed to be celebrating her. And she is still doing it, right now, tonight. Every single game, every single moment, Caitlin Clark is out there putting in the work, filling the arenas, breaking the records, and carrying this league on her back with a smile on her face. That is who she is. That is what she does. And no amount of gaslighting from any ESPN analyst is ever going to change that. The fans know it, the numbers know it, the market knows it, and deep down, in their most honest moments, the people at ESPN know it too. That is why Chiney Ogwumike is on First Take talking about shooting stars. That is why the tone is shifting. That is why the reset speech exists at all. Because the truth has a way of making itself known, no matter how hard some people try to bury it. Caitlin Clark is the greatest thing to happen to the WNBA in its 30-year history. Full stop. No asterisks. No qualifier. No, but let's talk about the other players too deflection. She is the one. She has always been the one. And the story of how the sports media tried to undermine that and failed, completely, spectacularly, undeniably failed, is going to be talked about for years. It is going to be a case study in what happens when an audience refuses to be manipulated. It is going to be the moment when the fans took back the narrative, and it is happening right now. You are watching it happen, and you are part of it. Before you go, I want to say one more thing. This channel exists because of you. Every view, every comment, every share, that is what keeps WNBA Exterior going. And if you enjoyed this video, if you learned something, if you felt that fire watching this story unfold, please take just 1 second to hit that like button and subscribe to WNBA Exterior if you have not already. Every single like, every single subscription, every single comment truly means the world to me and helps this channel reach more fans who deserve to hear the truth. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. Do you think Chiney's reset speech was genuine? Do you think ESPN is actually changing, or do you think this is just more of the same? I want to hear from you. Drop it in the comments, and I will see you in the very next one.
This conversation about the WNBA and one of its shining stars, the shooting star that only happens once in a while, Caitlin Clark, who is a phenomenal player, she just wants to play basketball.
Do you know what ESPN will hear when they get into that segment? People clicking off. People turning off their TV and putting on a different show.